Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. So, welcome. Welcome to CUPON of Greater Nanuet's Meet the Candidates event. It's really great to see everyone here in the audience, and I thank the candidates for coming out and joining us tonight, and I thank you. So I'm going to run through this as quickly as I can. I tend to be very long-winded, so hopefully I'll be able to be short-winded tonight. But our goal tonight is to give the community some important insight into the candidates running for local office in November, and in particular to provide the candidates an opportunity to share their perspectives on issues that directly concern CUPON of Greater Nanuet, namely issues regarding land use and zoning, and challenges related to overdevelopment in Rockland County. So please, let that guide your thoughts, candidates, as you speak to us this evening with us tonight. So it's just you, Mike.
Does that mean I get double the time?
No, you don't get double time. So you have 1 minute to tell us about yourself, and then I will ask you a question, and you will have 3 minutes to respond to that question that you have already been aware of.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Diederich, and I'm running for Rockland County District Attorney. I'm running on the Serve Rockland line, which is row I on the ballot. My opponent is on the Democratic and Republican and Conservative lines, and he received about 99% of the ultra-Orthodox bloc vote in the past summer's primary. I served 29 years in the U.S. Army Reserves as a military JAG lawyer. After 9/11, I served 2 combat tours of duty, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. I prosecuted criminal cases as a military lawyer, and I've defended criminal cases as a civilian lawyer. I was raised in Rockland County, and my law practice is in Rockland County. I concentrate on employment law and civil rights matters, representing individuals of all backgrounds and religious faiths at the trial and appellate level, and on 3 occasions I've influenced the U.S. Supreme Court. And as a Rockland County citizen, I'm very concerned about the future of Rockland County, and that's why I am running.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So the question I will ask you is, as it relates to CUPON's mission, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the county, and how specifically do you plan on addressing this challenge if elected?
As to CUPON's mission and Rockland's future, the citizens of The citizens of Rockland County are becoming increasingly concerned about the county's future. They are asking whether they want to continue to live here and whether they can afford to continue to live here. They have concerns about, first, the quality of life we have come to know, and especially irresponsible development and threats to our living environment and quality of life. Second, people are concerned about systemic Medicaid and other fraud driving up taxes. Finally, and perhaps of greatest concern, people are losing trust in government. Public corruption tops the list. As to these concerns, there is a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. However, what we are missing are the facts. The actions of the district attorney must be based upon evidence, not speculation, conjecture, or surmise. Accordingly, I announced last week my grand jury investigations initiative, which will employ the grand jury system to impartially investigate and report on matters of public concern involving government officials and employees. The grand jury will separate fact from fiction. As district attorney, I can then focus DA resources on prosecuting the types of wrongdoing most in need of prosecution. Specifically, I will ask a grand jury to investigate and report on the following matters of public concern. 1, perceived systemic corruption in, for example, the town of Ramapo, including alleged pay-to-play and betrayals of public trust, and alleged bribery, kickbacks, backroom deals, and political favoritism. 2, perceived Medicaid, Section 8 housing, food stamp, and other social welfare fraud and abuse. 3, perceived non-transparency in land use decision-making, spot zoning, and other illegality in land use decision-making. For example, the many concerns raised by homeowners in the town of Ramapo and its associated villages. 5, perceived non-enforcement of housing safety and fire code regulations. Municipal code enforcement officers may not be doing their jobs, and I want a grand jury to investigate that, because firefighters and citizens' lives are being placed at risk. 6, perceived religious bias and religious hatred in land use decision-making, creating potential large financial exposure for taxpayers in lawsuits brought against municipalities under our LUPA and similar civil rights laws. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I want to protect our citizens against financial exposure. I will prosecute hate crimes. I will prosecute anti-Semitism. Intolerance has no place in Rockland County society. Rockland's voters and you members of CUPON need a district attorney who is independent, who shows up for a forum like this, who represent your interests, because we need someone who protects our interests, all of our interests. I ask you to go to the vote on the bottom of the ballot, row I and row H. Vote aye. Mike Diederich for district attorney. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Tonight, I am the current legislator representing District 9. I was first elected to the legislature in 2011. I currently reside in Bardonia, where I grew up, and now live with my wife, Maureen. I have 2 grown daughters, Tara and Anna. I'm currently employed as a project manager for a firm that manages residential construction projects in New York City, and I previously worked at Verizon as a manager in product development. I hold a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Manhattan College, a master's degree in telecom and computing management from Polytech, and an MBA in finance from Long Island University. I have been very active in our community, serving on many boards. As for my political philosophy, I believe in serving my community and that nothing is more important than my personal integrity. I have served on the legislature based on that principle for the past 2 terms, and I will continue to do so if I am elected again.
Well done. You made it in just a minute. Now, your next 2-minute question, Mr. Carey through Mr. Flynn, is what is the biggest issue facing your district relative to zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address it if elected? You have 2 minutes.
Our biggest challenge related to CUPON's mission is undeniably the need to find more effective ways to stop irresponsible land use and development. I can offer 2 specific examples. The first is a proposed development project at Pascack Ridge, directly on Clarkstown's border, with 290 housing users on what is possibly the least appropriate site they could find. I've spent 5 years finding this every step of the way. But because it's in Ramapo, the project will likely be approved. So what can we do to be done to stop it? An organization like CUPON can raise public awareness and file a lawsuit. And the county does have steps it can take, including denying sewer hookups and road connections. The second example is right here in Nanuet with the Grace Baptist Church. Nanuet residents rose up in massive numbers and formed a CUPON chapter to oppose inappropriate land use in an area already at or over capacity for what it can safely handle. And the town of Clarkstown did its part by standing behind its existing zoning laws and regulations. The takeaway is that we need principled elected officials and engaged citizens to work together. As a county legislator, I've been a vocal advocate for the Rockland County Codes Initiative. The residents of District 9 can count on me to lead these battles, and I am fully committed to doing all I can to find new tools from which to fight them with. Thank you.
Very good. Your second question, Mr. Carey through Mr. Flynn, is our legislative district map will be redrawn after the 2020 census. Nanuet is currently split into 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? And if so, please explain why. If not, please explain how it should be done differently.
I do not support our current map because it's a textbook example of how political control is orchestrated through gerrymandering. This isn't how the democratic process is supposed to work, but it's what you get when political power and self-preservation take priority over fair and equal representation. On the surface, there's a legitimate process to all this. Outside consultants, the Board of Elections, and all members of the Legislator are technically included in the process. But that's just a formality to check the right boxes. The reality is that the process is fully controlled by the legislative majority, whatever party that might be at the time, and they can do whatever they please. That's how we ended up with one town, namely Ramapo, reaching into 11 out of the 17 districts. That's why we now have one town controlling the other 4. The system is being rigged to the point where it's not the voters choosing their elected officials, but rather the elected officials choosing their voters. I've already pledged multiple times in writing, speeches, on video, and I reiterate it here tonight. I will advocate for a complete overhaul of the mess we have today. I will support a map that follows the actual guidelines that are supposed to be followed. The new map should respect the boundaries of towns and hamlets to the greatest extent possible. We desperately need more equity and representation between our towns, but if we elect the same majority that's in place now, we are going to see a strengthening of Ramapo's control. And that means that what happened to Nanuet, 5 different districts, will happen again, but on a much larger scale, to Clarkstown and Orangetown. I will do everything I can to prevent that from happening. Thank you. Vote for me on row H.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carey, being channeled by Jim Flynn. Next, we have Legislative District number 10, and that is Ms. Harriet Cornell. I want to try and fix that mic.
Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you all for being here. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm Harriet Cornell. District 10 covers the village of Nyack and the village of Upper Nyack, Central Nyack, parts of New City, West Nyack, which is my residence, and Valley Cottage. I chair the legislative committees on the environment and transit. I also chair the Rockland Task Force on Water Resources, which was established in 2014 when I was chair of the legislature and was trying to prevent the building of a very costly desalination plant that nobody in the community seemed to want. The Public Service Commission agreed that Rockland could develop a plan of conservation and ordered the Suez to stop its plans for desalination. I obtained $250,000, which was put into the state budget in order for the county to develop its conservation plan and start its implementation.
Ms. Cornell, I'm going to have to ask you to go to the first question. I'm sorry. Don't take it personally. It's just a time thing.
Yeah, I will do that, except I didn't think I had used up my 1 minute, except to thank people for being here.
Yeah, no, you did.
But
I'll give you 15 seconds.
I just wanted to say that when I went out to the legislature, I was the only woman. I worked with our community on so many of the issues that weren't being looked at by the legislature, including things like domestic violence, health for women, a whole variety of things, child daycare and that kind of thing.
Okay,
But I'll move
great.
on to the next question.
Shall I ask the question for it? Do you want to hear me to ask the question?
No, I read it, so I know.
Okay. You have 2 minutes for your first question.
Right.
Thank you.
So, I guess you might say, the question.
I'm gonna ask it so that everyone is aware. It is the same question of all the legislators. So that is, what is the biggest issue facing your district related to zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address it if elected?
I've always supported the mission of this organization before it was even founded. As a county legislator and as chair of the legislature for 9 years, I was very supportive of the work that Gordon Wren was doing as the County Fire and Emergency Services Director. I believe he's the president of CUPON Rockland. I was liaison to his Fire Advisory Council and will always be in full support of the necessity to enforce codes for the safety of both residents and first responders. The issues of overdevelopment concern all of us. Some people get very angry and abusive. I just get busy. I sponsored legislation to put $30 million into the county's capital project budget to be used to acquire land that preserves environmentally sensitive resources, as well as those of historic or cultural importance. When we had this program in place many years ago, we saved from development 31 individual properties totaling 1,204 acres. And that, in addition to other savings of property, has meant that the county has acquired over the years over 3,000 acres of property for the beauty of our county. As chair, I also initiated, I'm going to finish in a second, I initiated Rockland Tomorrow, the county's comprehensive plan to guide smart land use planning decisions to preserve neighborhoods, create economic development opportunities, and on every relevant topic providing guidance for Rockland's towns, villages, and county.
Great. So I will repeat the second question for the benefit of the audience, and that is, our legislative district map will be redrawn after the 2020 census. Nanuet is currently split into 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? And if so, please explain why. And if not, please explain how it should be done differently.
Well, I do support the current map, and I'll tell you why. When I chaired the legislature, that was the time of the last census. That was in 2010. And in 2011, that was the election for the legislature, which meant that we had a very compressed time frame in which to really deal with the very difficult and interesting but difficult issues having to do with redistricting. The plan, and I insisted that we do public hearings all through. So we did public hearings in every single town, asking people what they might want to see in a newly redistricted legislature. And it was very interesting. Some people wanted the districts to follow their religious parishes. Some people wanted them to deal with the school district. They wanted to be in that kind of situation. It reminded me that when we first started the legislature, before we started the legislature, everybody was pretty happy because the county government was run by 5 people, defined 5 town supervisors. And so everybody was within their own town, and that's the way it worked. However, once the Supreme Court said there can only be one person, they said one man, one vote, one person, one vote, that meant that what was happening was the one supervisor in small Stony Point had 6 times the vote of Ramapo, for example, which had much more population. So once we had to go to another kind of system, the first system was actually an at-large system, which had Stony Point with 1 representative, Ramapo with 6, and I'm going to stop, but you'll have to figure out where the other I only tell you this because I know a lot about what we went through. We followed all the guidelines. The federal government tells you that you have to avoid going higher than 10% with your deviation between the largest district and the smallest. We kept it at, I think it was around 4%. So there are certain guidelines you have to follow. And sometimes it's not comfortable for people to know that Their loved community
You
is
are,
divided into
Ms.
front.
Cornell,
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, teacher. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm going to send you to the corner. I'm
I'm
going
gonna
to
go to
have
the
to do
corner.
that. I
I'm
don't
gonna
want
go-
to.
I'm going to go to the corner, and I hope that you will vote for me. If anyone here is from my district, I hope you will vote for me.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We now move on to legislative district number 14, and we're going to start with Mr. Anthony, Agin Anthony.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Good evening, everyone. My name is Agin Anthony. I'm seeking to run for a county legislator of District 14. I am a lifelong resident of Rockland County, and I am running because of the many issues we are facing that are impacting many of the residents of Rockland. A little bit about me: I am currently a vice president of a regional business dealing with petroleum services and management. I was a former trustee of New City Library. I am a member of Nanuet Civic Association. I am a member of CUPON. I am a member of Tarrytown Chamber of Commerce. My priorities are strengthening code enforcement, fighting against irresponsible development, ensure fair and equal representation, bring tax relief with such projects like the sale of the same building. Please vote for me on row H.
Thank you very much. I'll repeat the first question very quickly. What is the biggest issue facing your district relative to zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address it if elected?
Our biggest problem is clearly irresponsible development. For an example, there is a project on Pascack Ridge that contains 300 high-density units. This project shows of how anything goes mentality when it comes to building in Ramapo. And because of projects like this, it is a reason why CUPON exists. CUPON, you guys are the best hope of stopping it. Ramapo and the current legislature will not stop it. Ramapo connects to 11 of 17 different legislative districts. There is no desire to implement checks and balances. The cost to rip out and rebuild the infrastructure to support this building in Ramapo will cost millions upon millions, and of which the majority will be paid by the residents of the other 4 towns. When I win of District 14, District 14 will no longer be a rubber stamp for Ramapo. I will work with County Executive Ed Day and my fellow legislators to find and implement different methods to compel adherence to rules and regulations and to strengthen things like the Code Initiative. District 14 will have a representative who will attend both CUPON and Civic Association meetings. I will support CUPON in the fight against irresponsible development. I will work with all town, county, and state officials who understand that the current situation is unsustainable and will look for new checks and balances that we can implement. District 14 has none of this right now, and it will change when I get elected.
Thank you, sir. To repeat the second question, the legislative district will be withdrawn after the 2020 census. Nanuet is currently split into 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? And if so, please explain why. If not, please explain how it should be done differently.
No, I do not support the current map. The current legislative map is a disaster. As I mentioned earlier, 11 of 17 legislative districts connect to Ramapo in some respect, and it makes one wonder why. There are 5 rules for an equal and balanced map. 1, equal population. 2, Voters Act of 1965. 3, honoring political boundaries. 4, contiguity. And 5, compactness. We have 2 maps right here. If we can take a look at it, the map that's closest to me is what our current map looks like. The map that is farther away is an example of what a fair and balanced representation can look like, following the 5 rules. Each town would have a fair legislative representation, whereas one town has some pieces over the 11 legislative districts. When elected, I will ensure that rules are being followed for the redistricting of the map. I will work with my colleagues to see fair and equal representation for our voting population. Please vote for me again on row H. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ani Paul, also running for the Legislative District of 14.
Good evening to all of you. My name is Annie Paul, and I'm running for re-election for District 14. District 14 includes the part of Nanuet, New City, Chestnut Ridge, Spring Valley, and Pomona. And as a resident of Nanuet, I live 32 years in Nanuet, District 14. I'm a homeowner, a taxpayer, and mother of 3, an educator, and a nurse. And in nursing capacity, I worked as many positions. I worked 24 years at Nyack Hospital as a nurse, maternity floor, that is very rewarding. Then I worked as a nurse practitioner, then I am a nursing professor at Dominican College. And also, I can see I'm a member of founding member of Chamber of Commerce, member of Nanuet Citizens Association. And also, thank you.
Okay, great. So to repeat the first question, is it getting really boring that I'm repeating all these questions? Yes? Some people are saying no, some people are saying yes. I'll try to make them fast. What is the biggest issue facing your district related to zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address it if elected?
As you all know, it is, overdevelopment is one of the major issues we are facing now. And I really congratulate CUPON for doing a good job within a short period of time. You guys are doing a good job. And then the other thing is, I did have a chance to visit that area. One of my residents called me that the development is coming here. I visited that, and I did attend the 3 meetings. Out of 3 meetings, I attended 2 meetings in Damapo town. Regarding overdevelopment, I did spoke about against the development they are bringing here, and also overcrowding. You know that as a nurse, it is not good for our community, the health of the community, the environment of the community. We have to protect that. So we are, we need people to, like you guys, to ask for, work for that, to have a safe community, safe environment, and will promote healthy community. That's what I'm working on. As a nurse, I did a lot of volunteer work for the community, and you know that I did adopt the road cleanup, which is protect our environment and protect our community from infection, all that diseases, to promote a healthy community. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Then the second question, as we probably all know, we've memorized this one by now, is the redrawing of the maps. Nanuet is currently split into 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? And if so, please explain why, and if not, please explain how it should be done differently.
Actually, current mapping for me, Nanuet District 14, District 14 is too much, because Nanuet is divided to 4 or 5 districts. That is too much. I prefer the community as much as possible to put together, like Nanuet maximum. But there is as Harriet mentioned, because this about the population, about everybody equally divided for 17 legislators. But maximum, we have to try to keep our community together. Nanuet, Spring Valley, and we have Nanuet, Spring Valley, Chestnut Ridge, Pomona, and New City in District 14. So it's good to have Nanuet, and it's not only Nanuet. Maybe we have one more community, one more area, so that way we can focus on more into that community. That helps the community. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Please support me on November 5th.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we move to Legislative District 15, and we will start with Julie Goldberg. Do you need an adjustment to the mic?
Camera.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much to CUPON of Greater Nanuet for including me. Also, congratulations on this very well-organized and very well-attended event. My name is Julie Goldberg. I have lived in the beautiful village of Chestnut Ridge since 2002. I'm a school librarian, a former public reference librarian at the Finkelstein Library, English teacher, curriculum planner, technology trainer, published author, and activist. I'm a proud union member and have been so for over 20 years. I hold master's degrees in education, literature, and information science. I ran a primary challenge against a 4-term incumbent for state senate, so I'm not afraid to stand up for against my own party. And I am running on a future-focused environmental platform, which is all about sustainability, protecting our air, soil, land, and most importantly, water. In my best work, I identify problems, I bring together stakeholders, and I stand up for truth and for what is right, and I hope to do that in the county legislature.
Great. What is the biggest issue facing your district relative to zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address it if elected?
Okay, so this district 15 encompasses parts of Ramapo, Clarkstown, and Orangetown, so the district is a microcosm of the county. As everyone else has said, one of the biggest issues we face is unsustainable development. My angle on that, however, is that water is the key to all of these issues. Rockland is the only county in the state of New York that is limited in its water supply to resources within the county. But with Suez selling 8 million gallons of our water each day to New Jersey and rapid development placing stress on our water supply, we need new means to defend the purity and the supply of our water. Because Rockland County has no legal standing as of right now when it comes to our water, we cannot defend it under the current system. Nyack is a water district, Suffern is a water district, but the county is not. My proposal, which is already being worked on in a certain subcommittee of the county legislature, is to make Rockland County a water district. This would give the county legal standing when it comes to going to court and defending our water, and it gives the county as much authority as it needs to protect and defend our water. In Rockland, we can produce 34.9 million gallons of water a day. We are currently using 29 million. That's not much of a margin. So water is the hard limit on the growth of this county. Our most powerful tool to ensure that all development in Rockland County is sustainable development is a water district.
Thank you. Fascinating. Next is the redistricting question. Nanuet is currently split into 5 different, you got it. Go with it.
We got it, right? Okay. So certainly the map was made 10 years ago and it absolutely needs a change. The people most harmed by our bizarrely gerrymandered district in Rockland are the communities of color and immigrant communities in and around Spring Valley. Their voting power is diluted into a number of legislative districts, and as a result, their interests are regularly overlooked in the county. The Voting Rights Act, which Mr. Anthony referred to, says that redistricting must consider communities of interest. That's the legal language. This could be based on some common socioeconomic interests, such as home ownership, language, cultural, racial, ethnic, and economic interests common to the population of an area, if those will be probable subjects of legislation. Because we have 17 legislative districts in Rockland County, each district must be approximately 1/17 of the county population. So no matter what happens, Ramapo will have more districts than anybody else because they have more people than anyone else. So that part can't change. It doesn't mean they have to have 11. No one is ever going to be completely happy with a legislative map. District 15 was gerrymandered specifically to make it a Republican seat, so you can bet I'm not happy about that. Maybe John's. But now Nanuet is a school district, and that counts as a community of interest. So it has a reasonable right to ask that it not be broken up into many, many legislative districts. Some parts of Nanuet do have factors in common with neighboring areas, i.e. more renters versus homeowners, different language groups, so it might be reasonable if a part of Nanuet might be part of a different one. It certainly should not be divided into 5 districts. That's ridiculous. I am aware that there is no completely scientific and unbiased way to draw districts. There's always going to be horse trading, that's part of the process. But I will call on the expertise of those who study redistricting for a living and the vast resources of data available on the topic to try to get the fairest, most representative districts we possibly can. Thank you.
Excellent observance of time. Next, we have Mr. John McGowan. Do you have a hand with the mic, sir?
Can everyone hear me?
You're good. Lean in a little.
Sorry. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is John McGowan, and I'm running for Rockland County Legislator for District 15. I first want to start by thanking all of you who are in attendance tonight, and I want to thank CUPON of Greater Nanuet for affording us candidates this opportunity to speak with you and share some of our views on what's important during this election. Just a little bit of background about myself. I'm a lifelong Rockland County resident. I am a Pearl River homeowner where I grew up. I live right off of Earhart Road, just over the border of Nanuet. I'm a licensed New York State attorney. I'm in private practice. I focus generally in civil litigation, but I'm a former senior assistant district attorney here in Rockland County, where I was assigned to the Special Victims Unit, and I will note I was also assigned to Judge Gerber's court part for about 2 years. I'm running this year because I'm concerned genuinely about the future of our county. We need to ensure that our quality of life is preserved and protected for ourselves, our kids, and our future. And I'm confident that I have the skill set and the right experience as an attorney and an advocate to do just that.
Thank you. What is the biggest issue facing your district relative to zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address that if elected?
Thank you, sir. Like many of the legislative candidates up here, there is one major pressing issue in our county, and that is the threat of change in our bucolic suburban landscape by reckless, high-density overdevelopment occurring in parts of our county. Now, we all know the effects of overdevelopment and why we are opposed to it. The threat to our quality of life, again, our quiet suburban landscape, environmental concerns, loss of open and green spaces, threats to water sustainability, and stress, undue stress on our infrastructure. But to me, the focus should be on the cause of overdevelopment, and that is elected officials who do not do their jobs and fail to apply the law equally and consistently. Overdevelopment is the single most important issue that we collectively are facing in Rockland County, and make no mistake, this is a county issue, not a local town or village issue. We cannot stand by to allow our county to be changed in order to line the pockets of developers or to keep elected officials in office. We must find a way to deal with overdevelopment, and I believe that we can do so at the county level. I support our county executive, Ed Day, and what his administration has done, especially when considering the code initiative and relying upon the county sanitary code to bring law and order throughout our county, including the town of Rockland. We need legislators who will work with County Executive Ed Day to pass legislation to combat this threat. Now, opponents of Ed Day and what Ed Day is trying to do in his administration will cite to home rule, that this is a home rule state. But local elected officials, like those in Ramapo, refuse to enforce laws that threaten the lives of residents as well as first responders. So we must find a way at the county level to combat overdevelopment. I believe that I'm the right candidate to do so and will advocate tirelessly to protect our future. So thank you.
Okay. Nanuet is currently split into 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? And if so, please explain why. If not, please explain how it should be done differently.
Thank you, sir. Unequivocally, I do not support our current map. You don't need me, you don't need anyone up here. All you need are your eyes. If you look at the 2 maps to my right, you see the current map, which is blatantly gerrymandered for one reason, for political power to belong in one town in this county, and that is the town of Round Ball. If you look to the map further away from me, That's how it should look. And as been brought up, there is a criteria that must be used. There's several factors that have to be considered when configuring how our legislative districts are to be drawn. And one of those are communities of interest. This District 15 is in 3 different municipalities: the village of Chestnut Ridge, town of Clarkstown, and the town of Orangetown. Nanuet itself is a small hamlet, about 5 square miles, yet is divided into 5 legislative districts. That wasn't done by mistake. That was done to make Nanuet an afterthought, and that cannot stand. When we talk about communities of interest, look at what this group, look at what CUPON of Nanuet did when the sale of the Grace Baptist Church was proposed. How this community came together to fight that. That sale, that school made no sense going into that location. The stress it would have put on the infrastructure, it simply didn't belong. It could not handle that. But look what this community was able to do. Nanuet should not be divided like this. It should not exist in 5 separate legislative districts. We need common sense brought back to our legislature. We all need advocates. I'm a trained attorney and a professional advocate, and again, as I said before, I will fight for this district. I will fight for the residents of Nanuet. I will fight for the residents of Rockland. Please vote row H. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we move to our final legislative district of the evening, and that is District 17, and we'll begin with James Foley.
Hello, I'm James Foley. I'm running for Rockland County Legislature District 17. I'm a lifelong resident of Rockland County. I've been here for many generations, maybe 6. We don't really know. We went through all the records. It goes back too far. I'll be blunt. I'm doing this to try to save Rockland County. The drawing of this legislative map, this question that keeps coming up, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm standing in front of you. If I win this election, I have to resign from my job of 23 years. I have anxiety about that, but I'm willing to do it because I know there is one town that is, I'll just say it, hell-bent on destroying Rockland County, and I'm here to try to stop that from happening. Everybody here is here for the same reason. We can talk about all these different things, but what we're here for is we don't want Clarkstown and Orangetown to turn into the corrupt disaster that Ramapo is.
Okay, thank you. What is the biggest issue facing your district regarding land use and zoning, and how do you plan to address it if elected?
The single biggest challenge facing District 17 is the replacement of single-family home neighborhoods or open spaces with multi-family high-density housing. We do not want what we have seen in Ramapo with failed schools, higher taxes, and New York City-style traffic. We moved here for single-family homes, and multi-family projects need to be restricted. This issue has been sorely ignored, and I intend to use the county government against these high-density developments, use county oversight and control of planning and zoning, work against the segregationist, racist housing being installed in Rockland County. The Jim Crow 2.0 of 2019 is here, and we call it high-density housing. Can we just call it racist? Have adequate funding for the Commission of Human Rights and Fair Housing. Looking at how we can use water and sewer hookups to deny overbuilders the opportunity to build projects that will overtax Rockland's finite, as some other folks mentioned here, water supply. I will work with the town supervisors to have all of us on the same page in stopping this overbuilding. My seat will be used against the Ramapo machine to protect our lifestyle we have here and that we love and enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is the map question. The 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? And if so, please explain why. If not, please explain how it should be done differently.
I'm from Nanuet being in 5 legislative districts is a textbook definition of splitting, and not how a map should be drawn. District 9 and 14 are very extreme examples of gerrymandering, and this was done, of course, to disenfranchise Nanuet voters and to give that stolen power to the Ramapo machine. That gerrymandered map has been harming Nanuet and Clarkstown for nearly 10 years. And this type of gamesmanship is only but a taste of the gerrymandering that we'll see if our row-age candidates do not win their elections on November 5th. Obviously, the 2020 map should respect natural boundaries of communities of shared interest. One note, because of Clarkstown and Orangetown's low turnout for primary elections, a pizza pie Ramapo drawn map will have Ramapo choose our general election candidates. So you will get to choose a block puppet Democrat or a block puppet Republican, or maybe one person who has both the Republican and Democratic line. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that happening. I don't know. But seems to make both parties sick. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, also from Legislative District 17, Nancy Low-Hogan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm very happy to be here. I want to start out by saying that I wholly and completely support the CUPON mission. And that is what I told Michael Miller and Gordon Wren this summer. Even though Nanuet is not in my district, my constituents in District 17 share many of your concerns about ensuring protection of the character of our neighborhoods, irresponsible development and land use. Just a little bit about my background. I have been a Rockland County legislator representing District 17. 30 seconds. Okay, quick. I was a councilwoman in the town of Orangetown before I was a Rockland County legislator. I was chair of the planning board in the village of South Nyack. And when I was involved with the town of Orangetown, I passed a piece of legislation that had to do with notification whenever a property came up for a zone change. And it passed unanimously and is now town law in the town of Orangetown. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So your first question is, of course, what is the biggest issue facing your district regarding zoning and land use, and how do you plan to address it if elected?
Yes, thank you. In terms of the biggest challenge facing my legislative district as it relates to CUPON's mission, I would say it is preserving and maintaining our quality of life. We need to ensure that our community's character is maintained, that our home values remain stable, our building codes and zoning laws are enforced, our town and village local codes and comprehensive plans are up to date, our towns and villages are adequately staffed to do the inspections and the follow-up they need, our open space is protected, and our local law enforcement enforces our no solicitation laws. I have a lot written here. As a county legislator, what do? First, I listen to the constituents, and then I take action. Then I'm able to leverage my position as a county-level elected official to gain access and get information. I have had many meetings with the Rockland County Planning Department to obtain information that I then share with my constituents. What can we do? We can enhance the role and standing of Rockland County when it comes to development. We can figure out ways to give the Rockland County Planning Department more authority. We can develop a Rockland County Development Commission that would be a county-wide umbrella organization that would coordinate activities across the towns and the villages. We can explore the alternative protections that have been brought up tonight, like historic districts and water district. We can strengthen the relationship between Rockland County law enforcement and building and zoning code enforcement. We can get some of our best legal minds together to talk about how can we amend our LUPA. We can continue to support open space initiatives. And finally, we can confront the truth about irresponsible development and rapid growth in our county. And we can do it in a responsible, transparent way that will encourage buy-in from all 5 towns and all of our villages. Thank you.
Great. Well, I have more to ask you. Get back to your podium, please. Just kidding. So now we have the map question. The Nanuet is currently split into 5 different districts. Do you support the current map? If not, if you know the
I know
question.
it's a, yes. I do think the current lines need to be redrawn and updated. And I do not support redrawing the lines of these districts in any way that gives any more territory or representation to the town of Ramapo or any other town. I represent my constituents in District 17, and I work to protect those interests. I do not support gerrymandering of districts for political gain or any other reason. I think legislative districts should have their lines drawn in such a way so as to protect the community character and in contiguous ways that make sense and in ways that do not disenfranchise voters. There is such a thing as an independent redistricting commission. However, there is not a lot of support for this concept in the legislature and elsewhere. I do think, however, that an independent redistricting commission would give us the objectivity that we are looking for, and for that reason, I support it.
Great, thank you. So that concludes our legislative candidates. Thank you so much. You may have a seat. Now we're going to move on to the town council, and that is wards 3 and 4. And if I could have